That's fine if you're a billionaire, you can have that kind of impact. But if I'm not, what can I do? So I'm going to look at 4 questions that people ask that maybe stand in the way of them giving. They worry how much of a difference they can make, but you don't have to be a billionaire. This is Toby Ord. He's a research fellow in philosophy at the University of Oxford. He became an effective altruist when he calculated that with the money that he was likely to earn throughout his career, an academic career, he could give enough to cure 80,000 people of blindness in developing countries and still have enough left for a perfectly adequate standard of living. So Toby founded an organisation called Giving What We Can to spread this information, to unite people who want to share some of their income, and to ask people to pledge to give 10% of what they earn over their lifetime to fighting global poverty. Toby himself does better than that. He's pledged to live on £18,000 a year, that's less than $30,000, and to give the rest to those organisations. And yes, Toby is married, and he does have a mortgage. This is a couple at a later stage of life, Charlie Bressler and Diana Schott, who when they were young, when they met, were activists against the Vietnam War, fought for social justice, and then moved into careers, as most people do, didn't really do anything very active about those values, although they didn't abandon them. And then as they got to the age at which many people start to think of retirement, they returned to them, and they've decided to cut back on their spending, to live modestly, and to give both money and time to helping to fight global poverty. Now, mentioning time might lead you to think, well, should I abandon my career and put all of my time into saving some of these 19,000 lives that are lost every day? One person who's thought quite a bit about this issue of how you can have a career that will have the biggest impact for good in the world is Will Crouch. He's a graduate student in philosophy. And he set up a website called 80,000 Hours, the number of hours he estimates most people spend on their career, to advise people on how to have the best, most effective career. But you might be surprised to know that one of the careers that he encourages people to consider, if they have the right abilities and character, is to go into banking or finance. Why? Because if you earn a lot of money, you can give away a lot of money. And if you're successful in that career, you could give enough to an aid organisation so that it could employ, let's say, 5 aid workers in developing countries. And each one of them would probably do about as much good as you would have done. So you can quintuple the impact by leading that kind of career. Here's one young man who's taken this advice. His name is Matt Wager. He was a student at Princeton in philosophy and math, actually won the prize for the best undergraduate philosophy thesis last year when he graduated. But he's gone into finance in New York. He's already earning enough so that he's giving a 6-figure sum to effective charities and still leaving himself with enough to live on. Matt has also helped me to set up an organisation that I'm working with that has the name taken from the title of a book I wrote, The Life You Can Save, which is trying to change our culture so that more people think that if we're going to live an ethical life, it's not enough just to follow the thou shalt nots and not cheat, steal, maim, kill, but that if we have enough, we have to share some of that with people who have so little. And the organisation draws together people of different generations, like Holly Morgan, who's an undergraduate who's pledged to give 10% of the little amount that she has, and on the right, Ada Wan, who has worked directly for the poor, but has now gone to Yale to do an MBA to have more to give. Many people will think, though, that charities aren't really all that effective. So let's talk about effectiveness. Toby Ord is very concerned about this, and he's calculated that some charities are hundreds or even thousands of times more effective than others. So it's very important to find the effective ones. Take, for example, providing a guide dog for a blind person. That's a good thing to do, right? Well, right, it is a good thing to do. But you have to think what else you could do with the resources. It costs about $40,000 to train a guide dog and train the recipient so that the guide dog can be an effective help to a blind person. It costs somewhere between $20 and $50 to cure a blind person in a developing country if they have trachoma. So you do the sums and you get something like that. You could provide one guide dog for one blind American, or you could cure between 400 and 2,000 people of blindness. I think it's clear what's the better thing to do. But if you want to look for effective charities, this is a good website to go to. GiveWell exists to really assess the impact of charities, not just whether they're well run. And it's screened hundreds of charities and currently is recommending only 3, of which the Against Malaria Foundation is #1. So it's very tough. If you want to look for other recommendations, thelifeyoucansave.com and Giving What We Can both have a somewhat broader list. But you can find effective organisations. And not just in the area of saving lives from the poor. I'm pleased to say that there are now also a website looking at effective animal organisations. That's another cause that I've been concerned about all my life. The immense amount of suffering that humans inflict on literally tens of billions of animals every year. So if you want to look for effective organisations to reduce that suffering, you can go to effective animal activism. And some effective altruists think it's very important to make sure that our species survives at all. So they're looking at ways to reduce the risk of extinction. Here's one risk of extinction that we all became aware of recently when an asteroid passed close to our planet. Possibly research could help us not only to predict the path of asteroids that might collide with us, but actually to deflect them. So some people think that would be a good thing to give to. There's many possibilities. My final question is, some people will think it's a burden to give. I don't really believe it is. I've enjoyed giving all of my life since I was a graduate student. It's been something fulfilling to me. Charlie Bressler said to me that he's not an altruist. He thinks that the life he's saving is his own. And Holly Morgan told me that she used to battle depression until she got involved with effective altruism, and now is one of the happiest people she knows. I think one of the reasons for this is that being an effective altruist helps to overcome what I call the Sisyphus problem. Here's Sisyphus as portrayed by Titian, condemned by the gods to push a huge boulder up to the top of the hill. Just as he gets there, the effort becomes too much. The boulder escapes, rolls all the way down the hill. He has to trudge back down to push it up again, and the same thing happens again and again for all eternity. Does that remind you of a consumer lifestyle where you work hard to get money, you spend that money on consumer goods which you hope you'll enjoy using, but then the money's gone, you have to work hard to get more, spend more, and to maintain the same level of happiness? It's kind of a hedonic treadmill. You never get off, and you never really feel satisfied. Becoming an effective altruist gives you that meaning and fulfillment. It enables you to have a solid basis for self-esteem on which you can feel your life was really worth living. I'm going to conclude by telling you about an email that I received while I was writing this letter, this talk, just a month or so ago, from a man named Chris Croy, who I'd never heard of. This is a picture of him, showing him recovering from surgery. Why was he recovering from surgery? The email began, "Last Tuesday, I anonymously donated my right kidney to a stranger. That started a kidney chain which enabled 4 people to receive kidneys." There's about 100 people each year in the US and more in other countries who do that. I was pleased to read it. Chris went on to say that he'd been influenced by my writings in what he did. Well, I have to admit I'm also somewhat embarrassed by that because I still have 2 kidneys. But Chris went on to say that he didn't think that what he'd done was all that amazing because he calculated that the number of life years that he had added to people, the extension of life, was about the same that you could achieve if you gave $5,000 to the Against Malaria Foundation. And that did make me feel a little bit better, because I have given more than $5,000 to the Against Malaria Foundation and to various other effective charities. So if you're feeling bad because you still have 2 kidneys as well, there's a way for you to get off the hook. Thank you.